I've never questioned which Neopet is the worst Neopet. I've always known with a complete certainty which Neopet I loathed the most. I did not understand its motivations. Why does it have its own place on the map? How can it possibly support a UU ball team? And the more I thought about this after I realized that it was very clear to me that this Neopet is my least favorite Neopet, the more I decided I needed to know more. So today I'm going to present you with my findings that have transformed my experience of the
Kiko.
A gun to my head, I could not have told you this, but weirdly enough, the
Kiko
is a limited edition Neopet, meaning that you can't just straight up create it on any day like the majority of Neopets. It's a limited edition Neopet, which means if you want to create one, you're going to have to log on Neopets on their feast day, which is July 17th, and you're going to have to hope that you're there early enough during a time slot when the
Kiko
is available to be created, because there's a limited amount, or you can create a Neopet of a different variety and then morph it into a
Kiko.
They're one of the various methods available. Personally, I've never intentionally created a
Kiko.
So this was unknown to me. It always blows my mind when I learn a Neopet is of the limited variety, because I just don't see them that way. The whole creation process is so unrelated to my experience of life. Anyways, the fact that they are limited edition added to how just straight up weird they look is probably why they are not one of the more popular Neopets. In fact, when we look at the Neopets popularity page, which tracks the most popular created Neopets. So this is all of the Neopets in order of creation. People log on, they create the Neopet, it gets charted here.
The Kiko
is in 44th place out of 54. I'm pretty sure the reason why
Kikos
are so unpopular is because they look like little freaks. Let's go over their anatomy with this video that I filmed when I started this video back in August of 2020. What we can see is that the Kiko is an orb-shaped Neopet. It's a pretty round-looking guy. And we've got a couple of distinguishing characteristics. I would categorize the
Kiko
as one of the orb-like Neopets, just kind of like an amorphous blob. There are three, the
Kiko,
the Chia, and the Jub, that I pretty much kind of see as like the same Neopet, and I don't particularly like any of those three. Now that I've presented you with that unbridled hate, I'll let you know that there is a redeeming factor of these three Neopets. And to me, that redeeming factor is that they can be made into some pretty fun colors. There's like this weird overlap for some reason that these three Neopets are able to transform into like food-like objects. And I do think that's pretty cool. I actually really like that. I specifically like that feature of these three Neopets. But anyways, I digress. Let's get back to the
Kiko.
We've got a round-shaped body, two large fin-like hands, eyes that are close together, a small smiling mouth, and then band-aids on the head, or what some of us may call plaster. All of these features can be seen on the
Kiko
Classic. The
Kiko
was released before events were formally tracked on Neopets, so we don't have the exact day they were launched, but they're one of the early classic Neopets. The artwork was later updated to further define the hands. The hands of the
Kiko.
It's contestable whether or not they are hands or they are claws. Prepare for my evidence. This is Naiten Hororu. Naiten Hororu is one of the early characters on Neopets and has an entry in the Neopedia, which is a short story. The short story takes place in an area called Kokojuko. The people of the village look like the last thing they had to eat was their hope. He goes to a tavern, and the tavern barkeep tells him that there's nothing here but old bread and warm water. Naiten Hororu says, "That'll do." While he's eating, a door opens and three grundos move into the room. The tavern keeper shuts his mouth and goes back to wiping down glasses. Eventually, an altercation begins, and this phrase is mentioned. The
Kiko
spins like a whirlwind, little claws flying. The second grundo fell just as quickly, and the third stepped back, raising his hands. So this description describes the
Kiko's
hands as beclawed. He has little claws on his hand. Unless you want to say that the little claws belonged to the grundos, which I do not think is what's being described here. The
Kiko
in this very early description of the species is described as having claws. The modern
Kiko
that was released with Neopets 2.0 and customization features space between the eyes that we previously had not seen, pink plaster, and hands that have claws bending in order to hold items. I would argue that if there are any claws remaining in the Neopets
Kiko
design, it is just coincidental and not intentional. This appears to be more hands than claws, but I would like to introduce this concept to you and say the
Kiko
has claws. Now, I do believe it would be a misstep to talk about Naiten Hororu without mentioning the rising sun flag in the background of the illustration. The controversy around the flag is that it's associated with Japanese imperialism in the early 20th century because of its use by Japan's military forces during that period. I got that straight from Wikipedia. It was mentioned by a commenter, so I thought that if I'm going to use the illustration of Naiten Hororu, that I should definitely include this snippet of information. Now, do I think there was an intentional use of this to try to send a message? No, I think that this is probably ignorance. The other piece of contested
Kiko
lore is the Band-Aid and its purpose on all of the Kikos. There was an advent calendar animation where an elderly Neopet reads a story to the younger Neopets that describes the origin of the
Kikos
Band-Aid as being a cover-up from a pimple. Instead of reading this as canon, I've always thought this was a tall tale that an elderly Neopet would tell a young Neopet, and that this isn't the canonical explanation for why the Band-Aid's there. What I do accept as canon is that the
Kiko
is a beach ball, or modeled after a beach ball, and that the Band-Aid is a patch. Since they are beach balls with claws, that these Band-Aids are actually patches from where they've deflated themselves. I have another piece of evidence that
Kikos
are inflatables and that the Band-Aid is a patch where they've popped. In
Kiko
Lake, there is a shop stall where
Kiko
Pop is housed.
Kiko
Pop is a chance game where you throw a dart and you can win a prize. If you notice, the balloons at
Kiko
Pop have a Band-Aid on them that is the same color and style as the Band-Aid on
Kikos
For me, this further establishes that the Band-Aid is a patch, and the joke here is that
Kikos
are inflatables like a beach ball that have been popped and they are patched. My parting note on the
Kiko
has nothing to do with the species and everything to do with their homeland,
Kiko
Lake.
Kiko
The lake has some flavor text that's pretty revealing that I don't think I'd ever observed closely until I was prepping this video. To the northeast of Neopia Central is a large lake formed within the caldera of a long dormant volcano. Although you can't see much from above the surface, below is an underwater village where over 1,000
Kikos
make their home. For those of you that can't breathe underwater, you can try the glass bottom boat tour or investigate some of the onshore shops. To me, this poses
Kiko
lake to be like a lakeside retreat, somewhere that people can go to, kind of like a Martha's Vineyard of Neopia Central. Or maybe perhaps even a Jersey Shore, or is that Rhode Island? Who knows? And so it's a place where you can get away from the hustle bustle of Neopia Central and relax, take a dip, hang out with the locals. When I initially did my burst of research, this led to me looking up other calderas, and I was able to find other places on the planet that had these types of glass bottom boat tours, and I thought that was really interesting. I never really thought there was much depth to this world or this land in Neopets, and so I just wanted to share that with you. Alright, well that is the conclusion of this video, and now I'm going to get into the insider baseball of this video, specifically why a video that I started putting together in 2018 is now coming out in 2025. So if you're not interested in that, then hey, thanks for watching this video. I've got some other stuff on my channel. Go ahead and check it out if you're interested. But for everybody else who is interested in hearing that, hi, what's up? It's been a while. It's good to see you asynchronously. This video started in 2018. I was doing a series. I did the Akaras, I did the Grundos, and I was going to go through the entire Neopets alphabet. There's a song. So this video sat in my drafts at like 40%, and then a couple years later in 2020 and then 2022, I kept adding segments. I did a lot in 2018, but then I did little check-ins over time. And the other day I said to myself, that video is at 60%. It wouldn't be that much cognitive labor for me to get it over the finish line. No other of my drafts are as finished as this one is. So that's why you're seeing it today. So anyways, I'm going to be in the comments for the first couple of hours after this video launches. So go ahead, say hi, interact. I hope you guys are doing great. And I will see you when I see you. Take good care of yourself.